what connections, as I'm listening to my colleagues and I'm thinking about the kind of ways to help youth, and I can't help but thinking about how creativity impacts all of those things. And there's a lot of talk now about 21st century skills, and often it goes back to technology. But when we look at what we're going to need for the future, obviously the future is unknown. What these students and youth in different programs are working with is the unknown. And what you're working with is, I don't know what's going to happen next. And so when we look at the kind of skills and attitudes that we need for that kind of a world, we understand the importance of creativity. And then we say, well, what is that? How does that impact readiness? How does that impact empowerment? What does it come together? So I decided to kind of, based on what they had just said, I wanted to frame a little bit more first this morning about creativity and put it into a framework itself. Because as you think of who you are as a creative person, you probably could tell me some of your characteristics. I'm very open-minded. I am enthusiastic. I am really good at elaborating. I'm an idea person. And what you're going to hear from different people are different things. So one of the things I'll do this afternoon, or later, is that I'll take a look at preferences for problem solving, for creative problem solving, because we all have certain areas that we prefer to concentrate on and certain things that we then naturally often are good at. And we have characteristics that help us get enthused and to engage. And so it's a matter of being that talent scouter, both with those youth and for yourself to recognize and understand where your talents are and engage with others that have complementary talents. So creativity then is really central to who we are as a fully functioning person. And that's what we find through our studies. We have a series of impact studies, for example, that looked at creative problem solving. And when people engage in creative problem solving, what we find, some of the qualitative data that came out of it is people feel more empowered. They feel like they have better tools. And so that brings us to the creative process. You have natural processes you engage in. You have strategic processes you've been told. How does that work with creativity? How does creativity then interact with that? And on this page, you will see a actual product that was developed by engineers. So what was their task they were working on? Bridge building, and how to do it better and how to do it faster. And so somebody mentioned this morning playfulness. And playfulness is an important aspect to help us bring out our creativity and to be able to use creative processes. So this was actually implemented in a state. I won't say which, but it was the Department of Transportation, and they were working on better ways to work with bridges and get them constructed faster. So we understand creative process then. There are some particular things we can do, we can learn, and we can engage in that with other processes in order to move things forward. I can go to the second one. There we go. I could do it this way, right? Okay. So when I started thinking about this, the other piece that goes with it is a creative environment. A lot of that came out this morning. What's an environment look like that's ready for people to engage? We have to be able to take risks, right? We have to be able to fail. And a lot of times the youth I work with kids often that may not have accomplished things in their lives, and they may have actually failed at school, but yet they're passionate about whatever it is they want to work on. And they really believe that they can move forward in it. But the minute they fail, oftentimes they have difficulty coming back. And so what we teach in creativity is you're going to fail often because you're going to do something beyond where you've gone before, and then we're going to problem solve around it. So we celebrate failure. Oftentimes I give tickets. All right, I'll give out 20 tickets. I say, today you get a mistake quotient of 20. If you need more, let me know. And I say, I model imperfection, and I model it well. And thank goodness Jessica fixed my slides because it said youth-led, L-E-A-D, up there instead of L-E-D. She goes, common mistake. I'm like, well, at least I know I'm in the norm. So the creative environment is important as well as we look at products or outcomes. We want something new, right? If we have the same old thing that didn't work before, we're not going to get anywhere. So we need newness. But creativity then, from a product or outcome standpoint, is not just something new. Because that's how creativity gets a bad name. Oh, you're creative. What that means is you're weird. And you may be. But let's hope that you are also creative, which means that you not also bring an element of novelty, but there's a fit. There's some elegance to it. It's a wow. People look at it and go, we never did it that way. We never tried that. I can't believe that's different. Wow, why didn't we think of that? Sometimes it's a simple solution. And that needs creativity to come. So here's where you're at right now, okay? Here's where your current reality is. And this is your vision up here. And I know we have lofty visions. I know that we're very, very committed. And so our vision isn't here. There's not much tension there, is there? It's easy to get from here to here. There's not much tension. Your vision's probably more like that. All right, now what happens? What do I have? I have lots of tension. So what do I need to get from there to there? I have to understand, when they talked about readiness, the 3 big effective skills that have to do with creative problem solving. You need to, and you do this every day, you need to tolerate ambiguity. There's going to be a lot of, I don't know. We're going to have to work through that. It takes a lot of creativity. Tolerance for complexity. I know you don't have much of that in your life, right? It's easy, makes sense, Number 1, I do this. Number 2, I do this. And nothing goes wrong between those two. So there's a lot of complexity. And the third one is open to novelty. And sometimes because we're so committed, that's the one we fall down on. Because we don't want to play with things that seem nonsensical. We want to stay in the norm. I had a bank vice president in a session once. He was a client, and we were facilitating a meeting. And he had tried for 5 years to get something in place and change in his bank, and it wasn't working. So, we looked. It was ripe for creative problem solving. We went through a process. He selected some things that he needed in order to fix his organization. I said, okay, how'd we do? He said, it's the same old. I'm like, wait a minute, you're the one that picked the ideas. I said, now go back and take a look at what we talked about. Play with novelty. Pick some of them that sparkle at you. The spark is what's important. Understand that it can't be implemented tomorrow, but that if we are able to work on some things, that may be the unique perspective that we end up with something that's going to work for us. So, it was difficult for him because he had a low tolerance for risk. Thank goodness, in many cases, right? He's in banking, although that doesn't seem to be the case. But in this case, he needed to move beyond that risk and go to something that was going to be a little more complex to put together. So this particular slide then is something I was thinking about the other day. I said, what's the support that you need? All right, we're going to talk in the session about you as a creative person, your preferences, what that means for working with youth, what about a creative environment, and we're going to talk about, as you engage with these youths, when do you have hands off and when are your hands on? And when is it too much and when is it too little? And then what are those roles you play? You might ignore, inappropriate, right? You might be totally in control, also inappropriate. So where are all those places that you're going to go back and forth? What does it mean to be a good observer? What does it mean to just monitor and check in? What does it mean to facilitate? What does it mean to teach? Sometimes you do. You may teach a tool that they can then use. Sometimes you may lead, but that is only a very minor place for you when necessary. And sometimes you might direct. But a lot of times I suspect that facilitative role is probably most important, and that's one that we will take a look at. So those are the areas, and where am I at on time? I have 5 minutes, that's great. Those are the areas that we will take a look at in order to spark creativity. And one of the things that is most important are two concepts that I'll talk about since I have a little more time. One is the deferment of judgment. And that is when something comes forward and you're going, we've done that before. We can't do that. I don't have the money for that. That's illegal. That's your first response, right? So then we take a breath, because that's all up in your head, and you go, how might we make this? So by simply looking at some creative tactics to move from it can't to how might, it puts the ownership back on that group to take a look at where we're at. So we'll engage in some questioning techniques. The other is, and we'll talk about mindset. The other is that whole idea of growth mindset. In creativity, there are lots of techniques. Actually, all of the techniques in creativity for selecting, evaluating, and developing build off the principle of affirmative judgment. So we have some different things we might do. That's dumb, that's dumb, that's dumb. Okay, that one might work. All right, where's the energy? The energy's down. So what we want to look at is where's the possibility? Where's the potential? What are the good aspects? So we actually train in some particular questioning techniques that allow us to get away from those habits we naturally have, which is to critically evaluate in an unproductive way. Critical evaluation is a good thing, but in an unproductive way, and look at some ways to critically evaluate in a positive, affirmative way. So we'll play with those a little later too. Sound good? Yeah. All right, thank you.